Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to it. I've got another ranking video, and because I was just doing the Gorillaz unboxing moments ago, and I'm still surrounded by the unboxing debris, I was in the mood for doing a Blur video, that is. Blur ranking video, Damon Albarn's first big band, Blur, who were the most prominent in the 90s, of course. And yeah, this wasn't actually like a video idea I had till last night, and then I'm like, okay, why not? And I had to get my Blur collection out of the, not out of the closet, but it's actually back behind some of my my other collection. It's hard to explain, but there you go. I don't expect this one to rack up too many views, because Blur were never really a worldwide success, and you know, they haven't been in the news lately, so no one's gonna search out Blur videos, but seeing as Blur have always been one of my favorite bands, I thought it would be worth talking about, especially with all the Gorillaz activity lately. And yeah, what a great time to listen to Blur again, right? So starting from the bottom, as always, it's a countdown. We have Leisure, which is the debut, with that horrifying swimming cap. Really don't like the front cover, and yes, it is my least favorite Blur record, but it is, that always reminds me of Adam Hartmother, or The Verve as well. It's still got some great tracks on it. It's still a great debut. Like, you compare Blur's debut to like Radiohead's debut, and like, this is actually pretty good front to back. Obviously the high highs are She's So High, no pun intended, and There's No Other Way. But Fool, Come Together, Sing, Bang, those are all cool songs. And Hi Cool. Look at all the links. And yeah, She's So High especially, I really like that song. And then There's No Other Way was their first kind of hit in the States. I think almost every single from this became a hit in the UK, but in the States, There's No Other Way, I think, went to about 27 on the modern rock charts, and was really their only hit till Girls and Boys a few years later, and then Song 2. And those are like the three prominent songs that people know from Blur in the States, and here in Canada. Us Yanks only know those three. We don't know all the other great songs that Blur did, whereas in the UK, Blur and Oasis were like the Beatles and the Stones. They were huge in the 90s. So that's the bottom rank one. Don't really listen to that one much. Love She's So High so much. I remember, I always liked it, but I remember being in Ireland, and I was in the car with my girlfriend and her mother, and that song came on the radio, and I'm like, oh yeah, like, we just heard a Block Party song, but like Blur just stood out that day, and I'm like, yeah, this is probably one of my favorite Blur tunes. This is gonna ruffle some feathers. Second to last is The Great Escape. Now, let's be honest, I still really like this record, and it's got Stereotypes as a great opener. It's got a lot of great tracks on it, with the singles like Country House and Charmless Man is a lot of fun, bit of a cheeky song, but a good one. And then He Thought of Cars, I like that one a lot. I like It Could Be You. I just don't think it's quite as, not quite as consistent as all these other ones in the pile, but the fact that I put it below Think Tank, and the fact that I put Think Tank higher, let me say that, is gonna anger some people. But it's still a cool record. I would probably give it 3.5 or 4 out of 5. Yeah, even Leisure, I like it. It's good still. And next up is Park Life. So this was a year before The Great Escape. It's you know, close in sound. You know, I kind of think of a group like the Beastie Boys, like Ill Communication and Check Your Head. Those two just go together. Same with these two. Like, it was just a very fruitful era for the band, and they put out a lot of material, and I like this one a little better, though. If this makes any sense, I would say it's a little more inconsistent. Like the highs are higher, like Park Life, the title track, and To the End is amazing. This Is a Low is definitely a high, but I don't like songs like Clover Over Dover as much as some people do. I never really, that one didn't stand out to me. Um, yeah, it's definitely the least consistent for me personally, and that would anger a lot of people. But Girls and Boys, there they are at the dog race. Kind of cool, actually. Young Blur. There's Graham in the foreground, smoking a fag like he always was, I guess, even in the music videos. Um, and then next up is The Magic Whip, which was the comeback record. I don't think anyone thought Blur was ever going to come back, especially with Graham. And they did. And this one, unlike the last two records, which are way more beloved, this one doesn't have the high highs of like To the End or Stereotypes or Country House, which is a great single. It doesn't have those high highs. But as a listen, it's more consistent. I never want to press skip. I really like all these songs. Um, I think if there is a highlight, it would probably Go Out, but really just front to back, it's a great listen. I like how there's no English on the front or there. Very interesting. No track list either. But I had a hell of a time with this one when it came out. I thought it was great, and I listened to it a lot that year. I don't listen to it that much anymore, but I should, because it's great. It's really solid. It's really consistent. Next up is the eponymous one, Blur. This is the one all the North Americans know because they all pirated Song 2 and probably saw this little cover, little tiny thumbnail in their iTunes while they listened to Song 2. And it's a great record. It's also not the most consistent record. This record and Park Life are kind of, to me, why people say, oh, Blur's a singles band, which I completely disagree with. But on those two records, then I can kind of see where they're coming from. Though, having said that, I think the highlights are definitely Beetle Bum, which is, it was a hit in the UK. I think it went to #1. Didn't chart over here. I think that's one of the best Blur songs of all time. I'm Just a Killer for Your Love, that one also, probably like top 10 Blur songs, love that one. And Death of a Party is really good. It's kind of a downer track, but I really like that one. So there are a ton of songs that are better than Song 2. Song 2, as overplayed as it is, it's still a lot of fun. It's kind of like Queen's We Will Rock You. You hear it at every game, like every sports game ever. You always hear, woohoo! And it's overplayed as all heck, but it's still a fun song. But man, Blur have so many better songs than Song 2. And that's the tragedy of Blur and how they did in North America. Is people don't know that. Song 2 just eclipsed everything else. And as songwriters, they had so many great ones, many of which are on this one. This is my #3, Modern Life is Rubbish. And this one, I think when I was a teenager going into my 20s, it was my favorite Blur record. Front to back, it's amazing. It starts with For Tomorrow, which, you know, it couldn't be a hit here because it's just so British, but it's so perfect. Advert is a lot of fun. Even the part where they count, I wouldn't cut it out. I love that. Colin Zeal, Graham's guitar playing on this record is probably my favorite of his guitar playing. It's also catchy, yet it's also convoluted. Like, some of it sounds deceptively simple, but man, I remember when I was playing guitar, I was trying to like replicate what he was doing, and I couldn't make heads or tails of it. He uses some pretty interesting chord progressions. Star Shaped is one of my favorite Blur songs, completely underrated. Chemical World is a lot of fun. Oily Water is one of the best experiments they ever did. It gets so noisy and fun at the end. This version is the US one, so they put Pop Scene on, whereas in the UK you had to buy that as a single. It didn't come with the record. That's another one of my favorite Blur songs. Turn It Up is the one everyone hates because he's singing about a kazoo or something. But I think that song's a lot of fun too, in kind of a Syd Barrett playful way. It works for me. It's not a highlight, but it's fun. Resigned is, it's not really it's kind of the last official song, but then the track list goes up to like 68 or 69, and there's two like hidden songs at the end, which unfortunately for me aren't really worthwhile. But Resigned is, it's one of the best Blur songs. It's kind of sad, and I don't know. I really like it though. I doubt they ever played it live, but there you go. Number 2 is this heartbreaker of an album, 13, which I guess was about, you know, Damon's breakup at the time. And he played No Distance Left to Run for his ex, and she cried, and that's crazy to be, you know, that good of an artist. This houses, you know, a lot of their tenderest moments, for lack of a better word. Of course, the song Tender's on here, one of their best singles. Bugman, which is just noisy and experimental, and I think the solo is Power Tools. I don't think anyone's... Only Adrian Belew does that. Who else uses Power Tools? Coffee and TV is amazing. All these songs that no one ever talks about, like the run of, well, even Battle, but starting with Trailer Park into Caramel and Trim Trab, those are like some of Blur's best songs. I love those songs. And of course they have their fast punky song that they always seem to put on, Blurry EMI, which I guess was their stab at EMI at the time. And then lastly, and like I was saying earlier about with The Great Escape, this is going to make a lot of people upset. People hate this record, and it got some not very good reviews when it came out. I've always liked it. You know, I liked it when it came out. I liked it even more a year later. I played it and played it. The only thing that makes me sad about this record is Graham wasn't involved except on Battery and Your Leg. And I think he is a seminal part of the Blur experience, so it's kind of like an oxymoron for me to choose this record as my favorite Blur record, but I can't deny my heart, like, this one for my money is my favorite. Ambulance is maybe their best opener. I love that song. It's one of my favorite Blur songs. Out of Time and Good Song are both tender and beautiful. On the Way to the Club is great. Brothers and Sisters kind of reminds me of Gorillaz, like a Caravan. Sweet Song. Jets has this crazy like sax solo and this kind of like bubbling up part, and it's very experimental. Blur wasn't really a rock band anymore, and then the record label asked them to go, I guess they handed in the record, and the record label said, there's no single, go back and write a single. And Damon wrote the dumbest thing that he could think of and said, you know, like, F off, right? Here you go, like, I dare you to pick this as the single, this is what I wrote for you. And they did, because it kind of, it didn't sound like Song 2, but it kind of harkened back, and they said, okay, here we go, we have single material, we have something deliberate, something, you know, not a slow burner, something that's a little more, not radio friendly, but a little more immediate. That was the word I was looking for. This is when editing could come in, right? And he dared them, and he said, here you go, and they chose it, and a lot of fans go, oh, that's the worst Blur song ever. But I only know one other Blur fan in, like, IRL, in real life, and he likes it too. Like, we both think it's a fun song, and I guess, I mean, that's the story, but I don't think Blur hated it enough because they played it live on the Think Tank tour, so, but again, like Song 2, I wouldn't put it in my top 20 Blur songs, but I really like it when it comes on, and I don't even find that weird Daffy Duck voice annoying. It works, which is funny coming from me, because I really don't like stuff like, there's a Daft Punk song, and I love Daft Punk, but there's a couple songs actually on Human After All where the voice, the way they mess with the voice just drives me crazy, and one of those was a hit, Technologic. It reminds me of Crazy Frog. It's so annoying, but then it works on here, so I don't know, that's music for you, right? That's why there's no set rules or anything. And then, of course, there's a hidden song. If you rewind back to before Ambulance, there's like 6 minutes or so of music, and it's called Me White Noise. And there's two versions of the song. I think the one where you rewind back I don't like quite as much, as there was another one that you can find, and I eventually downloaded it. But that is a really cool song, and it should have been officially on the track list, because the fact that not everyone can find it isn't fair. I think it's a seminal part of the listening experience. So that's my controversial Blur ranks, a ranking of their studio efforts, and you know, you can yell at me in the comments because of my number one choice and the fact I put the Magic Whip before the Great Escape. And then I have the deluxe version of 13, and I picked this up for $2 or $3. It's all dusty, but I picked it up in a record store about a decade ago. And I don't know why I was like showing the random stuff at the end, but there you go, I do. And then, oh, I thought I had the best of somewhere. Anyway, I guess it decided it wasn't worth showing. Oh, here it is. This was actually the first thing I ever bought from Blur, and I think it was in 2000, because I remember listening to Music Is My Radar and seeing the weird music video that was just anti sort of promo videos, and just becoming ensconced, like going, wow, that song's crazy, it's so good, and then buying this, and even though it's the only song of its kind, and for a decade I said it was my favorite Blur song, and it's still up there, even though there's no other Blur song like it, I think that they used the fundamentals, or Damon used the fundamentals towards Gorillaz. I also hear that on Your Own from the 97 one, so going back a way, I think the blueprint for Gorillaz does kind of exist in some of that earlier Blur stuff, and that's really interesting to me, the evolution. Anyway, I went off track again. I was gonna say, even though none of the 17 tracks on here were like Music Is My Radar, my childhood self was not discouraged. I loved There's No Other Way, Beetlebum, like I said. You know, song 2, I knew that one going in, even though this was kind of a blind buy. I only thought I knew Music Is My Radar. On Your Own I loved. She's So High, like, what a great compilation. I think in a few ways this was better than the other one they did, Midlife, but that one was interesting because it had different mixes, especially the For Tomorrow one. That was really cool, and I remember a friend of mine, I never got that one, but a friend of mine got it, and I copied it from his CD. I went home and copied it and gave it back to him the next day, and I remember just loving that it was like a different mix. Maybe one day I'll get that, but I don't really have that much space, and if I am going to get any more Blur stuff, it would probably be on my record shelf, and get some LPs by them. But now I'm just rambling on, which is my MO. So, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If there's any Blur fans out there, I would love to hear from you. I don't think Blur is a band discussed enough anymore, and as much as I love Gorillaz, and maybe I do love their discography more than Blur now, I still think it's sad that Blur doesn't get their dues, at least from us Yanks. They certainly do still in the UK. So, anyway, talk about it in the comments. I appreciate so much the video. Thanks for the views on the video. Mushmouth. Thanks so much for watching, and take care of yourselves, and we'll see you on the next one. Adios, everybody.